Get out, you lowlife. We don't need uneducated trash polluting this family. That's what my father screamed, veins bulging, voice cracking, as he pointed to the door like I was filth. My mother stood behind him, arms crossed, nodding. No hesitation. No remorse. My name is Camille, and from wherever you're watching this, stay with me. Has your own blood ever spat on your dreams, only to beg at the feet of the future they never believed you'd build? It was supposed to be a casual dinner, a rare visit back home just to check in, but it turned into a firing squad. I was sitting at the table, still in my jeans and sandals, trying to explain what I'd been working on. Tech ventures, real estate partnerships, startup equity plays. Not that they cared. You never finished college, my dad snapped. You still work on a laptop at cafes like a scam artist, Mom added. Then came the line that burned like acid. You're just pretending to be successful. You'll come crawling back like always. I looked at them, at their smug faces, at the living room I once helped remodel with my own bare hands, and I felt nothing, just clarity. I stood up, tucked my chair in, grabbed my purse and keys, and said one word. Okay. They laughed behind me as I walked out. But what they didn't know, that cafe scam artist had just closed a $7.8 million deal. That the uneducated trash held majority shares in a fintech startup valued at over $200 million. That I wasn't leaving in shame. I was leaving in silence, to my beachfront Florida estate, where the ocean listens better than family ever did. 3 weeks later, they called. Not to apologize, but because the bank froze their accounts, because their house was on the brink of foreclosure, because their golden retirement plan turned out to be a Ponzi scheme. And suddenly the trash they kicked out smelled a whole lot like salvation. But I don't open the door just because someone's knocking, especially when the last time they saw me, they slammed it in my face. The first missed call came on a Thursday. Blocked number. Straight to voicemail. Then another. And another. By Sunday, I had 16 missed calls. All from my mother. The same woman who called me. A mistake that never learned her place. Now leaving voicemails that started with, "Camille, sweetie, we need to talk." And ended with, "Please. Just call us back. It's urgent." I didn't. I was too busy watching the sun rise from the balcony of my Florida beach house, sipping coffee brewed by my personal chef. Too busy reviewing the third offer from a major venture capital firm begging to buy into my latest platform. Funny how quiet life gets when you cut off the noise of people who only cheered when you were small. But then they showed up, unannounced. I was on my way back from yoga when the security desk called. "Ma'am, there's an older couple downstairs. They say they're your parents." I paused, then smiled. "Tell them I'm not available. And please let them know this building doesn't allow unapproved guests." 10 minutes later, I watched the security footage. There was my dad, pacing. My mom wiping tears she hadn't earned. Both of them looking around like they suddenly realized how far down the ladder they'd thrown me. They didn't recognize the world I'd built, because they never thought I was capable of building anything at all. Back when I dropped out of college, they held a family meeting without me. Decided I was wasting my life. Told relatives I was working for some scam website living off breadcrumbs. What I was actually doing? Designing a financial algorithm that now powers one of the fastest-growing credit unions in the Southeast. My team calls me the quiet billionaire in sneakers. I just prefer free. Free from expectations. Free from shame. Free from begging people who never saw my value to suddenly respect it. Later that evening, my dad sent a final text. "We're struggling. We need your help. Just a small loan until things get better." I read it once, then twice, and replied with just 3 words. I thought I was trash. Delivered. Read. No reply. Because when someone tosses you out like garbage, they don't get to knock on your mansion door 3 weeks later, asking to borrow gold. The silence after my message lasted 3 full days. No texts. No calls. No voicemails begging for forgiveness. Just silence, the kind that creeps in when people finally see the reflection they've spent a lifetime avoiding. But I wasn't waiting for them to respond. I was too busy closing a new round of funding with 2 Silicon Valley partners and a private equity firm in Dubai. Too busy reviewing blueprints for my second property in Miami. Too busy living the life they said I'd never earn without a degree or their approval. Then on the 4th day, my sister called. We hadn't spoken in over a year, not since she mocked me at Thanksgiving dinner for chasing internet money while holding a glass of wine I paid for. "Camille," she said, voice softer than I'd ever heard it. "They're not okay. Dad's had 2 panic attacks. Mom hasn't been eating. I think they realized they went too far." I didn't say anything. She continued, "Look, I'm not asking you to forget. Just help them stay afloat. They're scared." I finally spoke. "Do you remember what Mom called me? What Dad yelled in my face?" There was a long pause. She whispered, "Yes." "Then let me ask you this," I said, my voice calm. "If they had never fallen, would they have ever reached out?" She didn't answer, because we both knew the truth. They didn't miss me. They missed the idea of me. The one who never said no. The one who quietly paid their bills. The one who showed up with flowers after being told she was unworthy. But that girl? She's gone. And in her place stands a woman who wears peace like a crown, who doesn't explain success to people who can't spell respect. Later that night, I drafted an email. Professional. Clear. Final. To Mom and Dad. "I'm sorry for your situation. Truly. But this is the life you told me I didn't deserve. The same life you ridiculed me for building. I will not fund comfort for people who chose cruelty when kindness cost them nothing. I wish you healing. But from a distance. Camille." I didn't cry. I didn't flinch. I simply hit send. Because closure doesn't always come from apologies. Sometimes it comes from choosing not to go back, even when the door is wide open. By the following weekend, the media caught wind of it. Not the drama, the empire. An article dropped in a major business magazine. From college dropout to fintech queen, Camille R. built a $45 million fortune from scratch. There was a photo. Me on the balcony of my beach house, barefoot, wind in my hair, holding a coffee mug that said self-funded. The story hit like wildfire. Within hours, old classmates messaged me, former bosses, even 2 ex-boyfriends who always believed in me suddenly wanted to grab coffee. And yes, my parents saw it. I know because my sister screenshotted their group chat. Mom had written, "She's embarrassing us publicly. This is unnecessary." Dad replied, "She's doing this for attention." Always was a performer. There it was. Even now, after all their cruelty, after seeing the world applaud the daughter they tossed aside, they couldn't bring themselves to say one word. Proud. But I didn't need it anymore. Because the world didn't validate me. I validated me. That Sunday evening, I hosted a small celebration. Just 10 people. Investors who bet on me when others laughed. Friends who stayed when families slammed doors. We toasted to building something real. To outgrowing the rooms we were told we'd never leave. To surviving the guilt that so many daughters carry when they succeed without permission. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, someone asked, "Camille, would you ever forgive them?" I paused. Not because I didn't know the answer, but because it deserved to be said slowly. "I already have," I said. "But forgiveness doesn't mean access." They all nodded, because they understood. Forgiveness is mine to give. Reentry is not. Later that night, I got a new text. Blocked number. No name. Just this. "We saw the article. Can we come see you?" I didn't reply, because they didn't want to see me. They wanted to stand beside the success they never believed in. And I had no room at this table for people who laughed while I built it. Monday morning, my lawyer called. "Camille, we've been contacted by your parents' financial advisor. They're asking if you consider a loan to help cover their property taxes. Apparently, they're about 6 months behind." I let the silence hang. Then I said calmly, "Send them my rates. Business only." He chuckled at first, thinking I was joking. But when he realized I wasn't, his tone shifted. Understood. Because this was no longer a family matter. This was business. And they taught me long ago, the hard way, that when you're not respected as a daughter, don't offer love like one. I wasn't cold. I was clear. The same clarity they had when they called me uneducated trash. The same clarity Dad had when he pointed to the door and said, "Get out." Now the door was locked, the doormat gone, and the threshold guarded by the value they never saw in me. That week, they tried a different angle. My aunt reached out. She said, "Camille, honey, I know they were harsh, but they're old school. They didn't mean it like that." But they did. Every word, every insult, every look of shame when I said I wasn't going back to college. Every eye roll when I mentioned I was coding. I remember once, Dad told a neighbor I just does internet stuff. Probably a glorified receptionist. That receptionist now owned 2 corporations, 12 rental units, and 4 trademarks. And the trash they threw out now had trash bins worth more than their mortgage. Still, I told my aunt politely, I've forgiven them, but I'm not responsible for them. And that was the real line in the sand. Because people like them, they confuse access with love. They think being family means I owe them support, even after they offered none to me. But my support isn't free. It's earned. And they never made the down payment. Instead, I made one on a second beach house in Destin. Fully furnished. Ocean view. Paid in cash. Because while they clung to pride, I invested in peace. And peace? It never calls you lowlife. It never kicks you out. Peace welcomes you in. Only if you remember who you had to become to afford it. By Friday, the desperation turned performative. A handwritten letter arrived in a padded envelope. No return address, but I knew the handwriting immediately, my mother's. Curvy, careful, and always 2 sizes too big. It began with, "Camille, we made mistakes. We just wanted better for you." And spiraled quickly into emotional landmines. "We were scared. We didn't understand your choices. You used to need us. We weren't ready to need you. Can't we just start over?" No mention of the words they used. No ownership of the damage. Just soft nostalgia and veiled guilt. At the bottom, a single line written in trembling ink. "We'd like to see the beach house." Of course, because that's what it was always about. Not me, but what I had. Not love, but proximity to the life they never believed I could build. I folded the letter in half, then in half again, and dropped it in the shredder. Because here's what they didn't understand. You don't get to disown someone and then demand a tour of the palace they built from the rubble of your rejection. They had a daughter. Brilliant, loyal, quietly fierce. And they threw her out with the garbage because she didn't fit their definition of success. Now she was on Forbes 40 under 40. And suddenly they remembered her name. But I wasn't Camille the desperate anymore. I was Camille the decision maker. And my decision was this. No visits. No tours. No second chances. Instead, I called my assistant. Schedule the photo shoot at the new property. Coastal, sunset, clean minimalist style. And tell the reporter, yes, I'll do the cover interview. Because if they were going to see me now, they'd see me from a distance. No begging. No performance. Just truth, wrapped in designer linen and glass walls. And when they scroll through those photos, when they squint at the life they were too blind to believe in, they'll see exactly what they missed. Not just the money, not just the views, but the daughter who could have carried them all, if only they'd held her with something other than contempt. The magazine hit stands on a Tuesday. Front cover. Full page. A clean shot of me standing barefoot on the marble deck of my Florida beach house, wind in my hair, smile quiet but unshakable. Headline. She was told she'd never make it. Now she doesn't answer unknown calls. Inside, a 6-page spread. The real story. The rejection. The rebuilding. The empire. They didn't sensationalize it. They didn't turn it into a sob story. They let the facts speak, loud and clear. Daughter disowned for chasing an unconventional path. now CEO of a multi-million-dollar portfolio. No degree, no apology, just results. And within 48 hours, my parents' entire social circle had read it. Their friends, their church, their former coworkers. I know because my cousin forwarded a text from my dad. I'm sick of people asking about her like she's some kind of hero. She betrayed us. No, Dad. I didn't betray you. You abandoned me, and I survived anyway. That's not betrayal. That's becoming. By Friday, I got another letter. No dramatic wording this time. Just this. We see now that we were wrong. If there's ever a place for us in your life again, we'd be grateful. Mom and Dad. I sat with it for hours. There was a time I would have crumbled, would have rushed to call, to fix it, to finally be chosen. But that version of me? She doesn't live here anymore. I don't need to be chosen by people who couldn't even recognize me. So I wrote a response. Not to reopen a door, but to close it properly. Dear Mom and Dad, you taught me what it feels like to be unwanted, what it means to be discarded. And in doing so, you taught me to build something no one could take from me. I forgive you. But forgiveness does not include access. You will not be part of this chapter, because you tore out every page that could have included you. I wish you healing. I truly do. But from the distance you created. Camille. No signature. No warmth. Just closure. Clean, earned, and absolute. Because some families are assigned. But the real ones? You build them. From respect. From truth. From people who clap when you rise, even if they had to watch you do it without them. It's been 6 months now. 6 months since they called me trash. 6 months since I walked out of that house with nothing but a purse, a quiet okay, and a spine they didn't think I had. And in those 6 months, I've opened 2 new companies, invested in 5 women-led startups, built a scholarship fund for girls like me, brilliant, overlooked, and uninvited to the table. And most days I wake up to waves. To peace. To space, the kind they tried to shrink me out of. The requests have stopped. No more letters. No more voicemails. Just silence. And that silence? It doesn't ache anymore. It sings. Because I stopped chasing their version of love the day I realized it was conditional. As long as I obeyed. As long as I stayed small. As long as I never outgrew the story they wrote for me. But I outgrew it. I rewrote it. And now I don't need their seats at the table. I've built my own hall. With high ceilings, wide windows, and room only for those who saw me before the glow-up. People ask sometimes if I regret cutting them off. If I ever feel lonely. Here's what I say. Loneliness is living in a house where your voice doesn't matter. Peace is waking up in your own home, built with your own hands, where every corner whispers, you did this. So no, I don't regret leaving. They kicked me out thinking they were breaking me. What they didn't know, they were setting me free. And if they ever drive by this house, this quiet palace of soft light and louder legacy, they'll know that the daughter they once dismissed as a failure turned out to be the architect of everything they needed and everything they'll never have again. That's all it was to him. Expensive, top-tier, specialty gear I'd spent years investing in, cameras, lights, rigs, editing software. Tools I treated like gold because they were how I built my business, my work, my independence. To him, it was just lying around, available, his by association. So when I walked into the garage studio that day and saw Josh, my brother-in-law, using my red camera rig without asking, balancing it carelessly on a dusty stool while he filmed his knockoff podcast intro, I lost it. Put it down, I said, instantly tense. That's not for you. He didn't flinch, didn't look guilty. He turned to me and smirked, arrogant and unbothered. What's your problem? You think you own everything around here? I blinked, stunned. I do own that. Every piece in this setup, I bought it. With my money. He scoffed like I was being dramatic. We're family. You live here. It's all kind of shared, right? I didn't even get the chance to respond before my sister, Erica, walked in from the kitchen, drying her hands with a dish towel. Savannah, she said with that tone, the one that made everything my fault. Seriously? It's not that deep. You're acting like a stranger. He didn't break anything. I stared at her. That's not the point. You don't use someone's tools without asking. Josh chimed in with a laugh. What, are you gonna invoice me? But it was Erica's next words that shattered something in me. Look, you're not exactly irreplaceable.
Chill.
The silence after that was sharp. Not because it was loud, but because it confirmed what I'd been trying to deny for months. They didn't respect me. They didn't value me. They saw me and all I brought as background noise. The free gear.
The free rent.
The free help on their channel when they begged me to just check the lighting or edit one more clip. And when I set a boundary, I was a problem. That night, I didn't argue. I didn't slam doors or demand apologies. I just waited until they went asleep. Then I drove across town to my storage unit, the one neither of them knew existed, and started organizing what was coming home. Serial numbers, purchase receipts, backup drives. Everything was cataloged. Because I didn't just buy the gear. I bought control. And if they thought I was overreacting, they were about to learn the difference between sharing space and owning the foundation it was built on. I removed everything I had contributed to their studio.
Lights.
Cables. Memory cards. My main editing laptop. Licensing keys. Audio panels. Even the boom arm Josh had broken, and I'd repaired quietly. But I didn't leave it empty. What I left behind was even more damaging. A series of perfectly labeled folders on their desktop. Old emails. Partnership contracts signed under my name. Unpaid tax filings. All of it in one place. They thought I was being petty, but I was being thorough. Because this wasn't about revenge. This was about a reminder of who built this, who maintained it, and what happens when you push the person holding the roof over your head. My name is Savannah, and from wherever you're watching this, stay with me. Because when they said I wasn't irreplaceable, I decided to show them what that actually looks like. It didn't start with resentment. It started with generosity. When Erica asked if I could help her husband Josh set up his media brand, I said yes, without hesitation. She was my sister, after all. He was trying to launch something, she said, a podcast, maybe a YouTube channel, maybe a lifestyle content brand. Translation: he had a dream and no idea how to execute it. I had the tools. I had the experience. I had the actual skill set. So I offered my cameras, my lights, my editing software, not as a loan, as a show of support. And in the beginning it felt good. Like I was part of something. We filmed their intro together. I helped build their logo. Even designed their thumbnail templates. When Erica asked me to help edit a batch of videos before a brand deadline, I stayed up till 4 a.m. for 3 nights in a row. I didn't ask for credit. I didn't ask for payment. Because I thought this is what family does. They show up. So I kept showing up. Until one day I noticed something strange. On their website's New About Us page, I wasn't mentioned. Not once. Josh wrote that he built the studio from the ground up with nothing but vision and hustle. Vision, sure. Hustle? Maybe. But equipment, software licenses, connections? All mine. Still, I let it slide. When they got their first sponsorship deal, I celebrated with them. When they got their first brand shoot, I offered my lenses without blinking. But slowly, something shifted. Josh stopped asking before using things. Erica stopped thanking me. I'd find my SD cards scattered across the floor. Editing projects moved from my drive to theirs. One day, I caught them uploading one of my tutorial clips with his voice dubbed over it. No permission. No mention. Nothing. I brought it up gently, tried to be professional. Josh shrugged. It's all just content, right? Chill. And Erica? She sided with him. Every single
time.
When I expressed concerns, she accused me of being territorial. When I asked for some formal boundaries, she said, "You're making this weird. We're family." And when I told them I was going to start charging for my time and gear, that's when she dropped the line that stuck with me like splinters in my skin. "You're not exactly irreplaceable." That's when I realized they didn't see me as a partner or even a sister. They saw me as infrastructure, a plug-in, a resource, not someone essential, just someone available. That's when the switch flipped. And the woman they dismissed? She started doing what she should have done from the beginning, protecting her investment. I began collecting documentation, invoices, contracts, message threads where I'd been the only reason a deal landed, screenshots of Josh asking for one last free edit, emails where Erica promised my time as part of their full package. I didn't want revenge. I wanted clarity, and they were giving it to me line by line, lie by lie. Because when someone takes what you built and slaps their name on it,
You don't yell.
you detach, you prepare, and then you pull the plug. When you've been dismissed long enough, you learn how to prepare in silence. That's why I had the storage unit. I rented it a year before I ever needed it. Back when I first started feeling the shift in Erica's tone, the slow creep of entitlement in Josh's eyes. I never said a word about it, but I began duplicating files, documenting serial numbers, photographing receipts. Everything that had my name on it, everything I owned, I logged and backed up. Every time Josh borrowed something without asking, I wrote it down. Every time Erica called my contributions ours, I added it to the folder labeled liabilities they'll regret. So when I drove there that night after they told me I wasn't irreplaceable, I wasn't scrambling. I was executing. I opened the unit, a clean, climate-controlled room stacked with shelves, padded crates, and labeled bins, and smiled. Because everything I needed was already waiting. I brought my van and loaded up my equipment from their garage silently. The cameras, the lenses, the stabilizers. My $2,000 lighting rig they claimed was left here by a friend. I packed the mics, audio interfaces, even the studio chair I had bought because Josh complained about his back. I left them nothing I didn't have to, except the hard drive labeled Final Draft. Inside that drive were folders they never bothered to look at because they assumed everything belonged to them. But what I left behind was a digital landmine. Folder 1. Invoices unpaid. Every service I'd rendered for free, now itemized with market rates and timestamps. Folder 2. License expires March 31st. Because the software they used every day, registered under my company's account, already set to deactivate at the end of the month. Folder 3. Taxes. Their earnings spreadsheet, unreported gifted equipment, and screenshots of shady affiliate deals, compiled and organized with precision. Folder 4. Brands. PDFs of emails where I negotiated partnerships in my name, and Josh took credit. Some still ongoing. Some with breach of contract clauses. It was everything they thought they had buried under charm and delusion. And now, it was sitting right there, glowing in plain sight. I didn't hide it. I wanted them to see it. To understand what it felt like to be confronted with the truth after pretending it wasn't real. I even left a post-it on the monitor that read, "You're right. I don't own everything. Just everything that ever mattered." And then I walked out, drove back across town, unloaded the gear into my own clean, organized space, poured a glass of wine, and slept like a woman who had just returned her crown to its rightful head. Because they never saw me as a threat. I was just the helpful sister. The background asset. The soft voice they could ignore. But when I started moving, everything they stood on shook. And the best part? They hadn't even opened the files yet. But they would. Oh, they would. They didn't notice the gear was missing right away. That morning, Josh went live on Instagram to hype a major announcement. He had his followers hyped for a content drop, a new video, maybe a podcast deal. What he hadn't planned for. An empty studio. No lights. No mics. No cameras. Just a garage filled with extension cords, tripods with no heads, and a silent, blinking laptop that couldn't open any of their project files. I know, because Erica texted me 14 minutes into his meltdown. "Where is all the stuff? Did you move it for cleaning or something?" I didn't reply. Instead, I opened Instagram. Posted a single-story update to my professional account. Studio microphone. As of today, I am no longer affiliated with the channel name. All brand and business inquiries can now be directed to me directly.
Stay tuned.
Sparkles. No explanation. No drama. Just clarity. And that was all it took. My DMs blew up. A rep from one of the biggest podcast platforms messaged, "Wait, you are behind their editing? Their video quality? Can we talk?" A smaller tech brand replied to my story, "We've been trying to get in touch. You handled the deals, right?" I spent the next 3 hours on calls, real calls. Not family favors. Not backdoor work. Deals. Because the truth was, everyone already knew who made that content work. I was the clean cuts, the smooth audio, the professional emails, the quiet brilliance no one credited until now. Meanwhile, Erica called 3 times. Josh called twice. No voicemails. No apologies. Just desperate silence on the line. They even tried tagging me in an old photo with a forced caption. "Love our creative team. Excited to regroup and come back stronger." I reported the post. Instagram took it down for impersonation and misuse of identity. Then I sent them a formal cease and desist, written by my lawyer, addressed to their brand email. Simple. Professional. Bullet-pointed. I was no longer affiliated. Any content previously co-created was protected by copyright under my LLC. Any attempt to monetize my materials or likeness would result in legal action. No fluff. And just for fun, I added the clause they'd missed in one of our earliest brand partnership documents, the one where I retained 100% backend licensing rights on all content shot using my equipment, which meant they couldn't use anything. They couldn't re-upload. They couldn't re-edit. They couldn't even recycle old footage without risking a lawsuit. And suddenly they had nothing. No brand. No image. No gear. No goodwill. Just 2 people in a dark garage and the slow realization that the quiet girl they pushed out was the engine the entire time. They say rock bottom happens all at once. But for Erica and Josh,
It played out in real time.
the first hit came 2 days after my Instagram story. Josh tried to film a video on his phone, walking through their studio and claiming they were undergoing upgrades. He used natural light. His voice echoed. The shadows cut across his face like the universe itself was trying to sabotage the take. The comment section lit up. "Why does it look like a basement now? Did y'all lose your equipment? Where's Savannah?" They ignored the questions. Until they couldn't. That same week, 2 brands reached out to me directly. Both had been in deals with the channel, but only through me. When they found out I was no longer involved, they pulled out. One of them demanded a refund. Erica texted me, "Can we please talk? These brands are saying everything was under your name. We didn't realize." I blocked her. I wasn't being cruel. I was being finished. Because they didn't care when they thought I was replaceable. Now that they were fumbling through copyright strikes and losing sponsors, suddenly I mattered. Josh tried to re-upload one of the tutorial videos I'd edited, the one with my graphics, my voiceover, and my transitions. I filed a copyright claim within the hour. It was taken down within 2. He tried again, with a new watermark. I hit him with another claim. This time, YouTube issued a strike. 3 strikes and your channel is gone. He didn't try a 3rd time. Instead, he made a shaky Instagram live, voice low, hands twitching, explaining that they were rebranding and taking time to focus on family. The comments were brutal. Translation: You lost your editor. Should have paid Savannah. This is why you don't burn the talent. How do you rebrand when you were never the brand? Erica stayed off social media for a full week. Then, quietly, their channel posted a text post. "We've hit pause on content for now. Thanks for riding with us. We'll be back soon." They won't. Because, behind the scenes, everything was crumbling. 3 brands had already filed breach of contract notices. 2 invoices bounced. A small PR account even posted a screenshot from a leaked email showing Josh yelling at a brand rep for going behind his back to talk to me. That email came from the folder I left behind on their hard drive. Labeled clearly, "Read if you're feeling entitled." I don't know which of them opened it, but I know they read it, because that was the day the entire channel was scrubbed of content. Wiped clean. And just like that, 2 years of fake glitz and secondhand glory?
Gone.
Meanwhile, I was signing a licensing deal with a media company that wanted to use my original tutorials in their digital learning platform. Same videos Josh once called basic. Now, valued at $50,000 for exclusive use. Funny how clarity works in hindsight. They thought they were stealing my tools. What they actually stole was time. And I took it back frame by frame, file by file. And now, they couldn't record a sentence without me. Couldn't light a shot without looking like amateurs. Couldn't rebuild their brand without facing the shadow of the woman they underestimated. And that shadow was now the main character. The storm they were afraid of was the one they created. They just never thought it would arrive in the form of an envelope, or an email, or a formal audit request. See, when I left behind those labeled folders on their desktop, I wasn't being dramatic. I was giving them a grace period, a chance to own their mess. They didn't, so I passed it to someone who would. Using an anonymous email account, I forwarded the folder titled Taxes and Partnerships to 2 addresses. The IRS tip line, a corporate compliance officer from a brand they faked invoices with. It took less than a week. Josh's inbox lit up first, flagged emails, urgent notifications, request for tax documentation for 2021, 2022, and the current quarter. Erica's phone buzzed nonstop. They were officially being investigated for unreported income, fraudulent deductions, and illegal use of personal equipment claimed as business-owned. Equipment like mine, which I'd already reclaimed and documented as not business property. I sat at my kitchen counter, scrolling through screenshots people started sending me. Girl, is this about your sister? Check Reddit. Did you see this thread on creator scams? Their tax drama is all over now. Some anonymous account, probably a disgruntled intern or ex-sponsor, had leaked DMs, voice messages, and emails from their old partnership portal. Josh demanding free products. Erica pretending to be their content manager, me. False numbers sent to brands. Even a pitch deck I had designed with my watermark still on slide 3. I didn't need to say a word. The internet did it for me. One post in particular went viral. Turns out the quiet girl behind the camera was the reason the whole brand worked. She left, and now they're facing legal heat, no clients, and no clue. Another user commented, "You don't kick the builder out of the house and then act surprised when the walls fall."
Exactly.
They had built their empire on my silence. Now, that silence was weaponized, not in hate, but in evidence. Days later, Erica posted a Notes app apology on Instagram. We made mistakes. We took people for granted. We're cooperating fully with the audit and doing everything we can to move forward with honesty and accountability. Translation? We got caught. Josh? Still no public word. But privately? He sent me an email. Subject: talk. Just that. No body. No apology. No explanation. I didn't reply. I forwarded it to my attorney. Let him handle it. Because this wasn't my cleanup job anymore. It never should have been. They were the ones who forged fake influence, leveraged my labor, and ran a shady brand on the backbone of my work.
And now?
They were watching it all collapse, not because I destroyed it, but because I stopped holding it up. I'd warned them. I gave them years. And when they said I wasn't irreplaceable, they were right. I wasn't going to be replaced. I was going to be remembered. And not as the sidekick. Not as the equipment supplier. Not as the editor or the helper. As the woman who left and took the whole illusion with her. They called me replaceable. They said I was just the girl behind the gear. They forgot something critical. I never needed the spotlight to build the stage.
But now?
The spotlight is mine. It started small, a few DMs from creators who had followed the collapse. Then came the podcast invitations. Then a request to speak on a creative tech panel titled, "Credit the Creator. Behind every successful brand is the person they forgot to mention." I almost said no. But then I remembered the years I gave without asking for credit. The nights I edited until my hands ached, just to hear my sister thank Josh in every video. So I showed up. Not bitter. Not angry. Ready. I wore a simple black blazer and stood on that stage, not as a cautionary tale, but as a blueprint. People will use your silence to build their image, I said. Until you take that silence back and use it to build something of your own. The applause? Thunderous. But that wasn't the peak. The peak came 2 weeks later, when I launched my own platform. A clean, professional, solo content brand focused on creator education, tutorials, templates, licensing rights, camera tricks, and post-production breakdowns. Everything they used to beg me to explain? Now behind a paywall. The first day I opened enrollment, 3,800 people signed up. Within 72 hours, I had 5 brand sponsors. One of them? A company Erica and Josh once faked numbers to impress. They reached out to me directly. We always knew the magic came from you. Glad you finally stepped forward. The irony? I wasn't even trying to destroy them. I was just finally building something without them. No compromise. No shared credit. No guilt. The people who said I wasn't irreplaceable were now watching me from a distance, unable to recreate even a fraction of what I'd done for them. Every post I made now trended. Every story I shared got screenshotted. And every client I signed reminded me of one thing. This is what irreplaceable feels like. It feels like sleeping without a phone buzzing with last-minute favors. It feels like walking into a shoot with equipment I bought with hands that were respected. It feels like being asked, "How did you do it?" Instead of being told, "You should be grateful we let you help." And the best part? I did it all after they let me go. Their rejection wasn't my ending. It was my ignition. I'm not hiding anymore. Not behind the camera. Not behind someone else's dream. Not behind family that only knew how to take. I rebuilt from scratch, but this time I used bricks they couldn't steal and blueprints they couldn't understand. Now, when I walk into a room, I don't wonder if I'm wanted. I know I'm the reason it's full. And when someone says my name, they say it with credit, with respect, with weight. Because I'm not their assistant. I'm not the editor. I'm not the sidekick. I'm the brand. It had been 6 months since I walked away. 6 months since I stripped their studio bare, shut the doors on the chaos, and started building something that couldn't be taken. And in that time, not once did I miss them. Not the noise. Not the guilt. Not the way they looked at me like I was lucky to be tolerated. But still, I went back. Not to reconnect. To remember. The house was quiet when I pulled up. Their car was gone. The porch light flickered, a dull reminder that no one had maintained anything since the glue holding it all together had left. I let myself in with the spare key I knew they'd never bother changing. The garage was almost untouched. Same scuffed walls, same workbench with a coffee stain. But the shelf where all my gear used to sit? Empty. What remained was a box in the corner. Cardboard, dusty. Written across the top in marker. Save. Old stuff. I opened it slowly. Inside was a random mix of items. A broken tripod leg. A scratched lens cap. Some tangled cords. And sitting at the bottom, a small photo print, a still from one of our first shoots. It was me, adjusting a light while Josh posed. Uncredited. Of course. I held it for a second. Not out of nostalgia. Out of clarity. Because even in that photo, I looked like I didn't belong. Not because I wasn't supposed to be there, but because I was always meant to be somewhere else. I stood up, placed the picture on the empty shelf where my camera once sat, and pulled one final item from my coat pocket. A USB drive. I plugged it into their dusty, blinking laptop and uploaded one file. Just a short video. Black screen. White text. 14 seconds long. It read. What I took were my things. What I left was the truth. Build what you want. Just know, it'll never stand on the shoulders you broke. I ejected the drive, left it on the keyboard, and walked out. No drama. No explosion. Just wait. Because revenge doesn't always need to be loud. Sometimes it's the silence that screams. I never heard from them after that. Not directly, anyway. But weeks later, someone sent me a screenshot. A comment Erica had left on a creator's YouTube video. Give credit to the ones behind the scenes. Trust me, they matter more than you think. Was it for show? Maybe. But that wasn't my concern anymore. I had my own projects now. Glowed, my education platform, had reached 75,000 users. I was speaking on a creator ethics panel in LA next month. I signed my first book deal, title pending, but the working draft said, "You think you own everything?" And other lies they tell you when they fear your power. And me? I sleep easy. Because what I left behind wasn't just missing equipment or cold silence. It was a message that if you build your world on the back of someone else's talent, if you take, mock, erase, and betray, and call it collaboration, the day they leave, you don't just lose a resource. You lose your foundation. And when that foundation was a woman like me, you lose everything. They thought I walked out empty-handed, but I took everything that mattered and left them with the one thing they never gave me, the truth.